Alright guys, so we're going to talk about note-taking strategies. This should be a fairly short lecture. There's a ton of examples in your book, so you really want to get through those as well. What's important about note-taking strategies is that you have a couple, and the reason why is so that you might have different note-taking strategies for different classes. So ones that you might need for a sociology or humanity class might be something completely different than you need for a science or a math course. So it's important to have these different strategies. It's not likely you're going to have one that works for everything. So why do we take notes? It supports the listening. We talked about this in our active listening lecture. It's how you respond. It helps keep you focused in class. And then it helps you figure out areas that you might need more information or places you have questions. Again, so it allows you to test your understanding of the material. It helps with the remembering. So going back to our memory lecture, this is that way that we move that information from our sensory into our working memory. This is the way that we focus and pay attention to it so that we can encode it. Gives you a sense of what the instructor thinks is important. So again, you're not going to write everything that your instructor says. You're going to look for those keywords, key concepts, and pay attention to those verbal and nonverbal cues as you're listening. And then this creates your ultimate study guide. So by the time you have your exam, you should have what we call a master set of notes. And these are notes from your text and from the lectures that you've been able to put together and combine and use as a study guide. So of course, it helps to be organized. I've definitely had some students hurt my heart when they've opened up their backpack and like just a puff of papers shoots out. Please don't waste your study time looking for your notes. You should have a somewhat organized system so that you know where they are. Of course, use your own paper so that you can flip to different pages. So that you can go back and reference that material, especially if you have a class that's going to be super, super heavy on the note taking, then you want to be able to go back and find that information. We talked about using visual cues. I like to color code things. I know that's not for everybody, but any ways that you can highlight, underline, draw, if that's your style, any way to help you go back and mark that information that you know that it's maybe more important. We talked about chunking and memory and how that helps with our memory. So when you're making your ultimate study guide, you won't necessarily have all the time to do this in class to chunk the information, but when you're putting it together, you want to put that information together in groups that make sense to you and make sense for the class. And then of course, write clearly as possible. What I recommend, I think most of us are savvy enough in this world of text messages and the little abbreviations we use to type out messages, or not type out, I guess. Use things like that. Just make sure it's something that you'll understand and that you'll remember when you go back to it. There's different types of note-taking systems. I will tell you, there is not a right way to take notes. What that means is take notes the way that works for you. If it's not working for you, then experiment with different types. But use the one that, don't force yourself to do Cornell notes if you're never going to go back and fill in the paraphrase at the bottom or write out the side. Cornell notes is one that you kind of have to prep before going into class. If you're never going to do it, don't try to prep for it while taking notes while in the class and stress yourself out. Find a different note-taking system if that's what's going to work for you. But have these different ones. If your note-taking system is failing, maybe you do need Cornell notes. Cornell notes are really great for classes that have like a lot of new information. And then the best part with Cornell notes is the summary at the bottom. If you remember from our Bloom taxonomy and from our memory, when we paraphrase, when we put things in our own words, that's really helps with engaging in that information, figuring out your knowledge gaps. And so Cornell Notes is one of the few that I really like for that. It doesn't mean you have to use it. Doesn't mean it's the right one, but it is one when you have a really heavy note-taking class that has a lot of new information. It is a good one to use. Some people, when you look at your learning preferences, if you like the visual, some people draw out their notes and they might use the concept maps, and that's great too, or timelines. Find out the ones that work for you. Play with these different ones in different classes so that you can go back and figure out which one plays into your strengths and your learning preferences.